Welcome to the Redirect Podcast. My name is Abigail Hewins.
And I'm Emily Rojas. The Redirect Podcast is a show where we shift the conversation back to books. We discuss themes from some of our favorite fictional books and how those themes show up in real lived experiences.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing tropes in the romance genre.
Yes, and I can't wait. So we wanted to kind of talk about this topic because it seems like romance is really having a moment right now. I mean, when I was growing up and when we were growing up, I feel like romance was like that weird section of the bookstore that you dared not go to because every single cover had some weird guy with long hair on it and he's ripped.
Shirt.
Yeah, the woman's hanging over him. But I think right now it is really having a resurgence in a way that is way more mainstream. You're seeing those books front and center at bookstores. And definitely, like, I think a lot of that has to do with book talk and bookstagram and the popularity of reading, which I think in general, reading's having a moment. I mean, I think small bookstores are kind of having a comeback time. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts about why romance is fully making a resurgence right now in a more mainstream way?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point about romance novels, how they used to be when we were growing up. So, like, we were growing up in the early 2000s, you avoid that section of the bookstore because it makes you feel weird and you're like, maybe someone's going to see me here looking at this stuff, but you secretly do want to look at the romance books.
Yeah, like forbidden.
Exactly. And I think the genre has changed. So that's one of the things. The genre has changed, and contemporary romance now the books are like brightly colored and have cute animated characters on the outside of them. The inside is usually still smut, but it's typically more progressive smut, with these strong, for romance books that feature female characters, it often seems like the lead characters of these books like are able to have it all. And also I think like we're also seeing a trend in feminism where, for like a broader cultural context, like women aren't seen as powerful for emulating men, but women are seen as like worthy and powerful and worthwhile for just liking what they like.
Yeah.
And I think there's more permission to just like what you like.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I think that kind of ties into, like, I think a book now can have a romance plot and it's not necessarily stuck as a romance book because there is more of a push to just like what you like. It's not like trapped in that one section. I think there's a lot more books where like it may not be a romance novel in the traditional tropey sense, but it still has that romance plot and it's not like trapped on the chicklet shelves, in the back of the bookstore.
Right. And I think a lot of contemporary romance is now like there are more factors going into the book besides just the main character's relationship. Like more than just the relationship between the two main characters. There are like, it's a book that's set in the publishing world or the world of academia. It's, you're learning more about someone's culture, or there's like more discussion of other things. So it's like a novel. It's like a novel with a romance emphasis, but it's not just a romance novel.
Yeah, it's not like,
and I think that's the change.
Cut straight to the romance. There's like more to the story, and maybe that's why it's more popular, because maybe people feel a little better about reading them.
Right.
Like, I'm actually learning about science.
And like with communities like online, like on TikTok, so Book Talk, and on Bookstagram, like you're able to learn more and like get what feels like recommendations from friends, even though they're strangers. And I feel like it's easier, like, to know what you want than to just explore the romance section of a bookstore.
Yeah.
Because, like, what's popular, what's trending, and you want to be part of the conversation.
That is very true. So as like a kid or growing up, like, did you have any like introduction to romance novels, or how do you feel like you were introduced into the world of romance?
I mean, I was thinking about this today, actually. Obviously, Twilight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we going to bring up Twilight every episode of this podcast?
Probably.
We'll find a way.
What a rich text. Twilight. Also, I was thinking today about one of the first like romance heavy books I read was let me Google her name really quick. It was the book Shiver.
Oh,
Um,
I love her. Maggie Stiefvater?
um,
Stiefvater?
yeah.
Yes. I
Let's
absolutely
see.
love her. I do not know how to pronounce that
Matt,
name.
yeah, I'm so sorry. Scythe Vader, maybe Scythe Vader. Okay, this book is a YA novel.
Yes.
I did not plan to talk about this, which is why
No,
had to
but
Google
I
her name.
love this series.
Yeah, so that I read that, and like I think I was like high school, but it was like so much more romance heavy and less emphasis on like other plot or like dystopian world or like fantasy. It was more about the relationship and it was a little bit more mature. And I was like so taken by it. I
Yeah.
loved it so much. That was one of like the first romance books that really got me interested in the genre. And I think now, how do I feel about them? I, you know, I'm in a romance book club now. I mean, I like to read all sorts of things, but I think especially after the pandemic, it's like my threshold for reading stressful things
Mm,
is pretty low. And
amen.
it's so comforting to read a romance novel and feel like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have to process a lot emotionally. What about you? What was your relationship to romance novels and your entryway to the genre?
Yeah, I mean, that book series actually, I had not thought about that in so long, but that's probably a good one. Like you said, like I think the romance in the dystopian world, which is something I think we both loved, but definitely I loved. That was probably my first foray into anything romantic, like The Hunger Games, Peeta Gale love triangle, obviously Twilight, again, as you mentioned, similar vibes, another love triangle. So I think it was a lot more love triangles even until yeah, definitely Shiver's one of them. There's another series, Deadly Little Secrets, I think. I don't know if you ever read that, but this girl can like she has like a semi power where she can sculpt clay and it kind of gives her premonitions of the future. Like she'll sculpt something
Oh, wow.
and she's kind of having like a vision of the future, and then this guy she meets this guy who has a power where if he touches someone he kind of gets a vision of their future as well. So like it's like they both have this touch power, and so that was another series where it's like one of the first times where like you're saying there is no like love triangle, there is no like I mean, in both the Shiver and this other series I'm talking about, there is some weird elements, obviously powers and stuff, but I think those are some of the first books where it's like it's about these two people and how are they going to get
Mm.
together, and there's no weird love triangle. And then
And you kind of know they're the two that are going to
yeah,
end up together, as opposed to a love triangle where you're like, for instance, like Hunger Games, we're reading around the same time, is like you don't know who she's going to end up with,
yeah,
and also there's a war going on.
yeah.
Like there's a
They
greater
they also may
context.
die, you
Yeah,
know.
and the romance honestly is not the main
Yes,
point of the
yes.
books.
And I will say, I think I was more so like growing up into like romantic comedy movies than books. Like I think the book element is not something that I've come to until like being an adult more. And it was more the movies, like, but it is the same thing of what you said. Like, I love that when you open a romance book, you know that the two people are going to end up together. You know it's going to work out in the end. And there's no fear, like, there's no anxiety. It's just
Actually, I was
comforting.
just thinking about that one. I haven't read it, but the one that they both die in the end.
Oh, I'm
I would
scared to
say,
read that. Like,
yeah,
like
leave
you're
that one
already
out.
telling me that I'm not going to
Okay.
enjoy this. But yeah, like I love that comfort and that yeah, the predictability, exactly what you said. It's just like the knowledge that everything's going to be okay in the end, no matter what trials and tribulations they face in this book. It's going to be fine. And to be honest, they don't face that many trials and tribulations in so many romance books,
Hmm.
and that's what makes it good.
Yeah, unless you read something in the terminal illness trope,
Yeah.
like Walk to Remember or Fault in Our Stars,
Yeah.
then it's
Stay away
you
from
know
Nicholas
what,
Sparks, and you'll be
right?
fine. But if they have cute animated people on the front, you're going to
You're
be happy.
fine. You're fine. So okay, so we've mentioned the word trope several times,
Yeah.
and so I think we probably need to take a step back and explain what a trope is and if and why it makes books so predictable.
Mhm.
So do you want to start off? What is a trope, and what makes a trope so appealing?
I feel like a trope is just a pathway. It's like a pathway you make in your mind, but in a book. It's like you know what's going to happen every single time. And it's almost like a shorthand. Like I understand this trope is going to lead to this place or like this it's like a recurring element that shows up in romance novels and you just know what's going to happen. And no romance novel would be complete without one of these things showing up or multiple of these things showing up.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just like a shorthand I think for romance novels of these little scenes that you can count on and that you know are going to happen and that make you feel good.
Yes, and some examples of these tropes would be like forbidden love. So classic would be Romeo and Juliet. Um, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers. There are many books in the enemies to lovers subgenre.
Countless.
Um, fake dating is another huge one. Like, you know, when you get to chapter 3 and they're like, let's fake date. Like, you know how it ends.
Yes,
They get together.
but it's amazing.
Um, right. Second chances, like I would say the OG second chance book is Persuasion by Jane Austen.
Mm,
That is, I think a lot of these tropes, and this is not something that I plan on talking about, but a lot of our contemporary romance genre tropes are based or were derived from like classic
sure.
literature tropes that were often written by female authors. So like Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice is like enemies to lovers,
Yeah.
you know, or like Forbidden Love with and Jane Eyre, like you can't date your boss. He's
Yeah.
also married question mark to someone in the attic. Um, so you know,
It's fine.
let's see. So other tropes: grumpy versus sunshine. You know, typically the female character is super bubbly, drinks frappuccinos, and she's going out with a guy who drinks black coffee.
Yes.
And we mentioned terminal illness, best friends, one bed,
Mm.
the one bed trope,
Chef's kiss.
chef's kiss, and of course, different worlds and backgrounds kind of colliding. So that would be some examples of tropes. So Emily, why do you personally love the romance trope model?
Well, I think there are many answers to such an amazing question. But first, like you said, I think the point you brought up about a lot of these coming from classic literature is super interesting because, like, there is nothing new under the sun, and us humans are simple little creatures. And I think
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
I love it, and we all love it, and it's popular. It's like pop music. It's like Taylor Swift is popular for a reason because
Yes.
it's has mass appeal, and so I think tropes are like that. They are just popular. They have mass appeal, and I think, things that have mass appeal sometimes, not all the times, but are easy to understand, like you said. So it feeds even more into that comfort thing. Like you said, when there's one bed in a story, you know what's going to happen. Or
Yes.
maybe someone has opportunity to subvert your expectations, but at the same time, like you know where you're going. If they're fake dating, you know where they're going. If there's a super grumpy girl and a super happy guy or reverse, vice versa, you know where it's going. And so I think that's appealing. But also I think like the trope thing is like there's only so many ways to experience humanity. Like there's
Yes.
only so much out there. And so yeah, people fall in love in like pretty simple ways. And so yeah, there's tropes. But I think that's just based on the reality that like most of us are living the same kind of lives. And I think it's a
Yeah.
universal thing that you can tap into of like everybody knows those feelings. Even if you haven't experienced necessarily a fake dating someone, you can like think about what it would feel like so easily to like a really cute guy is asking you to fake date him and that
You
tension
can plug
and
and play.
yeah,
Exactly.
yes, it's so easy to insert yourself into those scenarios
I
for
do
sure.
want to I do want to like clarify something that we're saying though. I feel like it is fun to know where something is going, but you don't have to know the way to get there. So you know the final destination, but you don't know all the ways to get there. So
Yeah,
like I made a frittata this morning and I know it's going to turn out good, but I just kind of threw everything in my fridge inside of it. And so it's like, if I know a book is going to be about enemies to lovers, I know eventually they're going to get together, but it's still a delightful to read it along the way. Like,
absolutely.
and there are a million ways to tell that story. But to your point, like, there are only so many ways really in this world that people fall in love. And also, like, nowadays with app dating and just like the bleak condition of like being out there trying to get to know somebody, like it's fun to escape to the idea
Yeah.
of this like silly little world where, you are living in a giant penthouse apartment in New York City and you run into someone on the subway. Like that's fun to think about.
Yeah. But something interesting actually I wanted to kind of pick your brain on. I just happened to see this TikTok by
Hmm.
the user as told by Alani, and we will put a link in our show notes to that TikTok. But she was saying, she was referencing an interview actually with Ali Hazelwood, who wrote The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. And she, I guess, essentially in the interview, she was saying, like, I don't know how to make up the stories so good. My editor kind of gave me, like, here's some tropes, here's a scenario, now you go write the book around that. I guess my question is, like, what makes the use of a trope? I think there are books where you read it and you're like, they clearly went in. And I feel the same way. Another genre I love is thrillers. I feel the same way about those. Sometimes you can tell you came in with the idea for the twist ending or the trope, whatever genre you're in, and you backfill the story based on that. Like you knew where you had to get, and then you went and told the story. Versus sometimes I think where they kind of let the story take them, and then you add in the tropes. I think you can tell the difference, but like, what makes a trope in general feel authentic to you personally? If you have any thoughts on that,
What makes it feel authentic to me?
yeah. If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if it feels authentic.
Oh, so you're saying like in this example, like Allie Hazelwood, she was just kind of given a slate of options and she kind of plugged whatever she wanted to into this formula
Yeah,
versus an original story idea
yeah,
based
or
on.
like going in with the trope in mind, knowing where you have to get, like knowing this is the trope I have to throw in here, and then
Mm.
I'm going to write a story around that. Versus like, here's the characters, here's the idea, and then okay, a trope fits in here and it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, so I feel like I can tell the difference when you have to suspend disbelief a lot to make it work. So, as an example, Love on the Brain, which is Allie Hazelwood's new book, the one she was referencing in this TikTok that you're talking about, um, there's like a central misunderstanding
mm,
that could be overcome with one very simple and organic conversation that would probably come up in real life.
yeah,
And so it's like you're having to really jam this story and really lean on this miscommunication to believe that these people that
right,
that that it would elude them for so long.
sure, that makes sense.
So sometimes I feel like that's a signal that
Yes,
a story is being forced into a trope because you're just having to do a lot of mental gymnastics to
yes,
get past it, and it almost pulls you from the book a little bit.
yes. I think
It
I
takes you out of the
actually,
story just a little bit.
um, I don't remember what I'm referencing right now. So it may be an article, it may be a TikTok, it may be some podcast, but I feel like someone was talking about old rom-coms and how many of them don't hold up if people just had a cell phone. Like, like if they could just text or call each other and be like, "Hey, I actually didn't mean that." Like that misunderstanding genre I don't love. But it is, I think that's something that's harder to build around and less authentic feeling nowadays because it's like people communicate so much now. So I
I
think that's an
know.
interesting example, but I don't know. I don't know that it bothers me. I haven't read Love on the Brain yet, so I can't
Yeah, it's not.
give that specific example, but
You can allow it. You can allow it, but my point is, it takes you out of the story for just a minute
yeah.
because the thought crosses your mind. Well, one simple like
Yeah.
search of their Instagram profile, and you would know that you are
Yeah.
misunderstanding something.
Yeah.
So it's just you have to. If a book is set in 2022,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
need to. There needs to be fewer plot holes there,
Yeah.
and sometimes I think shoving something into a trope for the sake of following the trope
That's where you end up.
eludes you.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. And I feel like it doesn't necessarily matter as much to me because like you said, it is really to me about the journey that you're taking to get there. And a lot of times that part's fun. But I do feel like sometimes when it feels a little forced, you can walk away like a little disappointed. But in general, it's more fun just to like take the journey and
Mm,
see how you get there.
exactly. It's more fun to just allow it to
Immerse
be.
yourself fully and not
Exactly.
question it too much.
So, on this discussion of tropes, both of us have picked a couple of romance novels that we think really represent a few of these tropes very well. So, I'll open it to you if you want to go ahead and explain one of yours, and we can just ping pong back and
Sure.
forth.
Awesome.
Okay.
I actually funnily realized that maybe I like a good time jump because both of the books I chose have like a 10-year gap at least in between, events. So I didn't plan to put that as a trope, but that is a trope. There you go. So the first book I picked is Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. And it stars Gabe Parker, who is, a celebrity. And the 10 years previous, he was an up and coming celeb in his 20s, just at the brink of fame. And then Chani Horowitz, I do not know how to pronounce her first name perfectly, I think, but she's a journalist and she is basically starting off again in her early career in her 20s and is hired to do one of those in-depth profiles on him, the kind of one where the journalist spends days with the person and really gets to know them. And it's actually, I think, circling to my why it works, skipping ahead, I think it's based off of or inspired by a real article, a real interview with Chris Evans. So just picture Chris Evans in the lead role.
Ah.
And an interview that was done with him that, maybe there were some rumors about if anything went down between him and the journalist. But we'll also put that link in our show notes. But anyways, so that's where the inspiration came from. And I think the author also said just like in general, these celebrity profiles can be so intimate and like you really feel like you're getting a glimpse into their life, especially again, those really long form articles. And so in the story, they write the initial article 10 years in the past, and 10 years later, they're both in wildly different places in life. Cheney is a successful journalist working on a book, I believe, and she has really blown up. And then Gabe Parker, the celebrity, he has become sober, and his career kind of exploded. But now he's kind of, maybe taking a step back and needs something to spark his career. And so they approach her and ask her to write a follow-up interview because there was so much in this fake world. There was so much gossip about their initial story. It kind of alluded to something. She spent the night at his house, but no one really knows what happened. So because there was so
And the
much
reader
buzz,
doesn't know what
the
happened.
reader does not know what happened.
Okay.
Correct. And so there was so much buzz that they're asking her, will you do a follow-up? And she feels like she can't say no, even though she's like, I don't want to be around him again. And you're like, what happened in that 10 years ago? Like, why don't you want to be around him?
Oh, that's great.
She ends up traveling with him to his hometown in Montana, and they're forced to kind of spend a lot of time together, forced to stay in a small, cozy environment with his family.
So from what you're describing, we have from different worlds. We have a celeb and a real person. We have forced proximity.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a couple of different tropes like pinging
Several,
around.
yes. And so why it works, like I said at the beginning, it is based off of that real interview. So I think it does feel like super grounded in reality. And for me, it just feels like, oh, I believe that this could happen. I think sometimes with the from different worlds or celebrity and real person trope, it feels like one we both read and just loved was The Bodyguard. Similar premise of a real person and a celebrity. But even in that, you do have to suspend your I love that book, but you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit because you're like, would they actually work? Like
yeah, and it's okay to suspend disbelief.
Absolutely,
but it does dilute the story a little.
But in this one, it's like, no, this makes sense. Like this journalist is spending a lot of time with the celebrity in these in-depth articles. Like they're having meals together, they're going to each other's homes. Like when you write an article like that, it does seem like they spend a lot of time together. And so I think that really works. And I think I love the 10-year gap. I love it that you're going back and forth. You don't know what happened 10 years ago. And it kind of culminates, the present day and finding out what happened 10 years ago. It kind of peaks at the same time. And so I think that's really exciting. I loved this book, and I just think it did just feel like believable, but also I think I love this trope of the celeb and the real person, because I think the narcissist in us all wants to believe that we could make
That we could
celebrity.
pull Chris Evans.
Yeah, that we could.
I personally think I could, to be
So yeah,
honest.
facts. So to feel that way, you're like, like, or it's just such a fantasy when you are like someone you watch on your movie screen, or like, a person you see in magazines could fall in love with you. And so I think I just love that trope, but also I love this book. And I think in the 10 years later, like I said, Gabe had become sober. He had kind of gone through some struggles with alcohol addiction. And so I think that, brings him down a little. His career is not quite at the height it was in this book. So you do kind of feel like they're on a very similar playing field, because her star is also kind of rising as his is kind of, lower. So
Falling.
yeah, that's my first book. I really loved it. I think.
I have not read that, but what a ringing endorsement. I
Yes, thank you.
have to add that to my list.
Okay, what is your first book that you have chosen?
My first book that I picked was one of the books of the summer, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This fits into the enemies to lovers trope. So in Book Lovers, Nora Stevens is our main character. She's a high-powered, workaholic, cutthroat type woman living in New York City and working in the literary industry. She's an agent, and she and her sister, her bubbly little sister, she persuades her to go on a month-long trip to a picturesque small town in Western North Carolina, which I personally loved because my parents currently live in a town that I feel like is very similar to what Sunshine Falls might be like. And when she arrives, she is disappointed to encounter her professional nemesis. And of course, circumstance leads them to working together to edit a book for one of her clients. So, why it works. I love it because I listened to an interview with Emily Henry about this book, and she wrote this during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is her third book. Her prior two books were were also romance novels, but had a little bit more heavy subject matter, where, there was the main character's family was going through grief, or there was some other theme that was a little heavier. And she wanted this one to be super light and like a hug and just enjoyable, the ultimate summer read. Like, she wanted this to just be relaxing, and that's what it was. It was just totally a delight. And that's why it worked for me. I love that she left out the serious subject matter. You know that they're going to end up together, but there are also some subplots. Like, there's something that's going on with her sister the whole time that you can't quite add that up. So while you know how the main story is probably going to resolve, it's still left questioning how some of these subplots are going to resolve. So I feel like it keeps you engaged throughout, even though you pretty much know how it's going to end. And, loved the characters. I also love a self-aware romance novel. Emily Henry nods to the idea of romance tropes in her book. The main character, Nora Stevens, has always kind of been luckless in love. Like, she's had a series of relationships with men that have ended in Hallmark movie type ways, where one of her boyfriends will go out to a farm in Massachusetts and meet the farmer's daughter and decide to leave her. And so it's like, it's acknowledging the silliness of it and just saying like, hey, we're allowed to feel silly. Like, this doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And I love when romance authors do that, when they nod to like things that people outside the genre make fun of.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And I love this book as well for that same reason, because I love the subversion of the Hallmark movie trope. Like, I love that because I feel like I always leave those movies like that high-powered lawyer in the city did nothing wrong. Like, she was just living her life.
She didn't do anything wrong.
She didn't deserve to be basically emotionally cheated on by you,
Totally. And it's like, yeah, she's allowed. she's allowed to be who she is, and that's another bringing it back to what we were saying at the top of this episode. Like in contemporary romance novels, it feels like women can actually have it all. When in reality, that's probably not true, but in this world, it is.
Yeah,
So
well,
she can have the career and the
yeah,
relationship
and
and
she
her
didn't have to
family and
change
everything.
herself. I think that was the key. Like, she
Yeah,
didn't
she didn't
have
have
to
to change
change who
herself.
she was. She didn't, at the end, she wasn't like, and I learned to work less and, stay at home more.
Yeah,
It's like, no, he loves me for who I am, and
and
I
he
didn't have
loves
to
to work.
change. And he loves to work, and we love to work together, and we're going to be amazing. So I
Yeah,
love this book as
exactly.
well.
Go read Book Lovers. We won't
Read
ruin
it.
it for you.
It's so
That's great.
good.
Okay, Emily, what is your next book?
Okay, my second book I picked is not as lighthearted. So this would be one when you want to
Oh
cry.
boy.
Pick this one if you want tears. It's called Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. And it is the best friends to lovers trope. Another gap in time. So again, I don't know what that's about. Didn't intentionally pick two books that are similar, but basically, Macy and Elliot, so Macy's mom dies when she's very young, and so that's kind of where the book begins. And her dad kind of has this in his mind that he's like going to get them a kind of, I think it's like a mountain vacation home. It's somewhere outside the city where they live, where they can just go. And I think someone gave him that advice. Maybe her mom. Okay, I'm sorry. It's all coming back to me now. I think the mom, before she passed away, like maybe she was battling cancer or something, and she was like, you need to take her on these, like, you need to take her out of the city, have her place where she can go, because she's going to go through hard times. She's going to miss me, or like she's going to go through breakups, or she's going to have mean friends at school or whatever. So have a place where you can take her. And so that was like some of the advice the mom gave him. And so when she passed away, he does get this house, and it ends up being right next door to where Elliot lives full time with his family. And so his family like becomes somewhat of a surrogate family for her, because it's just her and her dad. And so the mom, becomes like um, kind of a surrogate mother figure. And he has these brothers that she loves, but they really become best friends and spend a lot of time reading books together, and just eventually falling in love by the time they are late
Hmm.
teens. But again, something happened, and you don't know what happened, but they don't speak anymore. And then, many years later, they run into each other very unexpectedly in like a coffee shop, and she's like the last freaking person I ever wanted to see. And you're like, what happened? Because I'm reading about you falling in love, and you don't know. So
And that's
um
like jarring for the reader.
it is jarring. And then she's actually in a relationship with someone else at the time that they run into each other again. But there's this
Very
like connection
notebook.
between them. And so they kind of rekindle a friendship. And it's like, I think another trope is like the trope of the draw of like a passionate relationship versus like a stable relationship. That's a trope I think I love. Although I don't like anything where they like cheat on each other, but that doesn't happen in this book, so no cheating, trigger warning. But yeah, just it's like that, is it worth it to like open myself back up to someone who did hurt me, where you don't really know until towards the end why she was hurt by him, but is that worth it to go down this path again when it hurt me so badly the first time that I've closed that part of myself off. um
And I think that's great because you don't know exactly what happened. It's an invitation to the reader to insert their own situation
yeah,
into the story, because they're not comparing it to the actual offense that happened. They're just kind of maybe you were reading it and plugging in an offense that's happened to you
sure,
into the book, and so you kind of see yourself reflected in it.
absolutely. And you do find out in the end what happened. That's the tear jerking part. I just want to say it will get you. It is sad at the end, but we're just read it nonetheless. But I think it is, yeah, those things I love. The first love trope, the best friends to lovers, and then that choice of like, do you want to pursue something knowing like it might be the best, deepest love of your life that is like amazing, but then that opens you up to pain if it's taken away. And I think part of falling in love is giving up control, which I have control issues, so maybe
Oh
that's why I
God.
like this. But it's like
Yeah.
you have to know that you're giving someone the power to hurt you if you love them, and so that's a hard choice to make. You could just not love someone as much and have like this stable, fine relationship, but feel nothing, you know? So
Yeah.
that is hard, I think.
Oh gosh.
Especially if you've been
Especially
hurt before.
totally, I was gonna say that, and like
Yeah.
in characters who've been hurt before, maybe even by the same person, and like the bravery it takes to open back up.
Yes. Even years later when you've been closed off for so long. Um, yeah, I think it feels really grounded, and I think people like the idea of falling in love with a friend. You know, I know so many people who will say that, like, I want to be friends first before I fall in love with someone. And not everyone has that experience. And I think that's also fine. But I think it is kind of like something that's makes your heart feel fuzzy to read about, is like knowing that they were just kids together and then they grew up and they found love in a deep friendship that, you know, can still be there. I think that's part of it too. Like, I believe in taking kids seriously because I myself had such big feelings as a kid and they were real, you know? And I think people don't take those feelings seriously, but then to have something where, okay, now they're in their 30s and that those feelings are still there and they're
It's
still
validating.
just as real. Yeah, it's validating of like, you can have these deep feelings when you're, you know, 14, 15, 16, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter your age. Like, those feelings can be real and they can last until you're a lot older. So that's why I love that book.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. What's your next book?
Yeah, so the last book we'll discuss is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So earlier in the episode, we talked about her newer book, Love on the Brain. This is her first book, The Love Hypothesis, which I learned after I read it was actually based off of a Kylo Ren fan fiction.
Which tracks? It tracks.
And as an Adam Driver gal, I totally endorse that. But don't worry, this is not like Star Wars. This is actually Ali Hazelwood comes from the world of academia, and she's set this book in the world of academia. So this book centers around the main character, Olive Smith, who was a third-year PhD candidate studying pancreatic cancer research at Stanford. And the premise behind this book is that she's trying to convince one of her best friends that she's over her ex-boyfriend so that her friend can date him. And she enters into an agreement with one of her, not one of her professors, one of the professors of the program, Dr. Adam Carlson. So right on the nose there. To enter into a fake dating agreement so that he can convince the department chairs that he's interested in staying at the university and should be put up for tenure, and so that she can convince her friend that it's okay for her to date her ex-boyfriend. So this falls into a couple tropes. Obviously, fake dating is the big one. Second, also, is grumpy in sunshine. You know, he's a grumpy, notoriously hard-ass professor who is, you know, people are really scared of him. Of course, his physicality is based off of Adam Driver. If you look closely at the cover, that definitely comes through. So he's tall, he's dark, he's handsome, he's brooding. And we all know where this is going. Okay. No one in a book has ever fake dated and not ended up with the person they fake dated. So we know where this is going. But so why does it work? Why does it work even though we know they're going to end up together? It works because it allows for the slow burn. So this fake dating relationship allows for so many scenarios where they have to publicly show affection to one another. And, you know, spoiler alert, like maybe it's all not just fake. So, I have some beef with this book. There are some things I don't love about it, but I think that it works because of the slow burn. I think that it is funny. There are some really funny moments. Also, this allows for the main character to really focus on her career too. Like, there's lots of discussion about her career and her science and the things she's interested in, and it's not just, you know, Kylo Ren worship, but it's super fun, and it has a great payoff, and I think you genuinely love the characters probably to your point, Emily, about like grounding things in reality. Since this is based, since the idea for this book was based off of an already famous and beloved story
Mm.
that was made into a multi-million dollar film franchise, like
Clearly not popular at all.
there are some assurances that people are going to like the characters. And like, if you can close a romance novel and love both of the main characters, like, that's a huge success. So, um, I also, to my point about book lovers like being self-aware, there's also a nod to the only one bed trope in this book. Like, there's a situation where the main characters are going to be at a hotel and she's like, I can't go into your hotel room. Like, have you never read a romance novel? Like, there's only going to be one bed. And so yeah, it's self-aware, it's cute, it's funny, and the slow burn of the fake dating trope just allows for such a fun time for the reader. And I flew through it, because I loved it so much.
Yes, I have to
Um,
say, I love a slow burn.
yes.
Yes, there's a book series that I love that I have shared with you of it's a female Sherlock Holmes series, which I obsess with. It's
Yes,
the
the Lady
slowest
Sherlock.
possible burn. There is one sentence in the first book that gives you any
There's
kind of feeling.
literally
It's one
one
sentence.
sentence.
And
It
then
is
I'm on
the
book 5 and we're still
it's an ember,
but it's amazing and I love it.
but it
It's
gives you enough
pain.
hope to keep
Yes.
reading.
It's painful enough that it feels good. It's like holding an ice cube. It's like, what is this feeling? It kind of hurts. It's kind of cold. I don't know.
Uh,
But I love the
okay,
slow
so
burn.
let's wrap this up. Have you experienced a trope in your real life?
Well, I was gonna say, the best friends, young love, that is my real life. So,
Aww.
I think I really like that trope because of that reason. Because like I said, I felt a lot of deep things as a kid and also just like, yeah, I think just because you fall in love when you're, 17 or whatever, it doesn't mean it can't be real and last. But I have to say that's probably the main trope. I've never fake dated anyone. Um, I've never been forced to share a bed with someone,
No
and there
love
was
triangles?
sexual tension, no love triangles. I'm not nearly that popular. So,
Okay.
what about you? Have
I don't.
you, or which one would you want to experience? Maybe that's
Oh, that's
another
a good
question.
question too.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, I don't think I fit nicely into any of these tropes. If I had to choose one, I would say second chances. Not with the same person, but like giving myself a second chance
Hmm.
at love,
Yeah.
after experiencing rejection or heartache. The hero's journey to open their heart and try and love again.
Yeah.
Um, and then, if I could pick one,
Yes.
oh gosh, fake dating. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Fake dating. Fake dating is so interesting because you go in with this set of rules and then you feel like you both agreed to it. So then you feel like you can't say anything. Like, I can't bring up that I'm feeling feelings because we both consented to the specific set of rules, which is fake. And so I think it's a really compelling trope too.
So, and that's the thing. You know that there's going to be a glorious moment of payoff
Yes, it's
where the truth
beautiful.
comes out.
Yes, I would love that. And you know what? I think that's one other last thing I'll say about why people like tropes so much is because, like, in reality, if you're enemies with someone and then you're sexually attracted to them, like, probably what's going to happen is they're going to still hate you. Like, they're probably not going to fall in love with you. Or, like, if you fake dated someone or were in a relationship with someone in your office, which is another trope we have listed here, like, probably those things would end badly. But in the romance world, you can read it and it's going to end okay. And so it's like, the things that wouldn't work out in real life, you can live vicariously through books.
Amen.
Amen.
This has been such a fun conversation. Curious to those listening, go interact with our Instagram, at Redirect Podcast. Read and Redirect is READ, and comment on our recent post, letting us know some of your favorite tropes, favorite romance novels,
Yes.
and
And what books we should read next.
yeah, and what we should read next.
Okay, so that was our conversation about tropes that we love in romance books. And now we're going to do a little segment where we tell you the books we've been reading recently and really enjoyed. So, Abigail, do you want to go ahead and go first and let us know what the book is that you read recently?
Sure. So I listened to this book on audiobook. So first off, I want to say that if that is an accessible way for you to access books, we need to stop, especially as like a book, like a reader's culture, book talk, bookstagram world, being so judgmental about and like such a gatekeepers about like, oh, listening to audiobooks isn't the same thing as reading. If that's how you, an accessible way for you to access books, I think that's great and you should do that. So I listened to The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I see you nodding. Have you read this book?
I have read this book.
Okay, great. So I'll be curious to see if you agree with my take on it. I really liked it. So I got turned on to Rachel Hawkins because last year, Emily, you lent me or you sent me Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, which is another thriller of hers. So this is it's a thriller. The title, Wife Upstairs, gives away what you think should be the twist, but it's given away in the title. So it kind of leaves you wondering, like, where is the story going to go? But it's set in Birmingham. In like a country club type neighborhood, rich Southern people who graduated from Auburn or Alabama, and about a young woman who moves to Birmingham kind of to start over her life. And she starts being a dog walker for the rich people in the neighborhood until she catches the attention of a recently widowed man in the neighborhood. And she kind of starts a relationship with him and chaos ensues. So she's a complicated character. Like our protagonist is like a little bit unreliable. She has like a shady past that you don't quite know about like until you get further into the book, and she has a complicated backstory. She isn't like totally morally good. She has kind of some nefarious intentions with like ensnaring a rich guy, but at the same time, like you're learning things about the guy and the other neighbors. It's, if you are from the South, you will resonate with this book a lot. Like Southern culture, cattiness, gossip, fake friendliness, and it was a good time. I enjoyed it. I specifically picked it because I was listening to it while running and I really needed something that was like gripping and kind of pulled me in. And I felt like this one really kept my attention and I wanted to keep reading or listening. And if you listen to the book, I think that the narrator does a really good job of doing the different voices so that you really know, like it keeps your attention and it's easy to tell who's talking. So Emily, I'm curious, do you agree?
You know, that's my bad. I was thinking of a different book called The Wife Between Us, not The Wife Upstairs. Okay. So I actually haven't read it, but you have made me want to read it. It sounds like a similar type of vibe to that book, but that's on me. So you really inspired me to read that book.
Okay, yeah, you should read it. You should.
But that sounds really
All right,
good.
what's your book?
My book is called The Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen, and it's like a young adultish fantasy novel. And Natasha is Nigerian and Welsh, so it's this book is based on kind of an ancient African religious slash folklore figure called the Mami Wata, and I believe in the fable or the beliefs about this person. It was just one person, but she kind of adapted it to make it a group of people, of women who were once human but have been turned into mermaid-like creatures. And they, so the book is set in the very, very beginning of the African slave trade. So I think like the 1400s, when that's first starting. And so the Mami Wata's job is to basically, it's very sad to find the bodies that have been thrown over slave ships of those who have passed on the journey and guide their souls onto the afterlife. But one day, Simi, the main character, she finds a boy who's still alive. And even though it's not really what she's supposed to do, she's not supposed to reveal herself to humans, it's considered dangerous or whatever, she saves his life and takes him to the goddess that she kind of serves, and asks her for her help. But because she has broken her vow to just guide the souls on, she's kind of put all of them in danger. And so the boy she saved also has kind of a quest he has to accomplish that I won't spoil too much of, but they end up having to go back to his home village, and it's kind of this epic journey to save the Mamiwata people, but also save the human people who the boy is from. So I'll say I'm not a big fantasy person, so it was kind of hard for me to get into this because I just have a really hard time with like a bunch of proper nouns and a bunch of backstory. It's just hard for me to keep up sometimes. But once I pushed through, this was a really good book. There's like forbidden love because the Mamiwata can't be with the human, but there's some love developing between her and the boy that she saved. There's like great friends, great family, people they meet along the way. There's like gods and goddesses, so it's kind of like this otherworldly battle going on. And I've heard that a lot of the African, religion or folklore is very accurate to what's portrayed in the book. So it's kind of based on a lot of real beliefs or, fables or stories that have been passed down. And so I think that's really interesting just to read about other cultures. And I don't know, it's kind of an interesting take on that time period as well. So I really liked it. And it does end on a cliffhanger. So I'll warn you, because I didn't know. And I read this on Libby, and then my library didn't have the second book, so I had to buy it instantly because I had to know what's going to happen next. So I think it's going to be a trilogy maybe, or a third book is yet to be released. But it was really,
That's
really
fun.
enjoyable. If you like fantasy, I think especially, but even if you don't like me, it was still very good in the end.
Yeah, fantasy can be challenging, but it sounds like that might be a good entry point for people who are
Yeah,
trying to
especially because it
challenge
is like a
themselves.
young adult book. It's not super hard to read. So I think that helps if you are not big into fantasy, but it is kind of a good entry point, like you said. But it was really good.
That's awesome. And I was also thinking, I was at book club this morning. We were talking about the importance of supporting BIPOC authors, especially women BIPOC authors, Black, Indigenous people of color, and that the publishing world can be very white dominated, and a lot of times that leaves like BIPOC characters in books, their stories being told by white people, in like kind of a little bit hit or miss ways. And so it's really, when you can, it's important to make an effort to read and buy books
Yeah,
written by
absolutely.
people of
And
color.
the author herself said, like, she grew up loving The Little Mermaid, but was like, there are no black mermaids. Like, there's none. So she
Yeah,
kind of wrote it herself. So I think that's really cool that it's something that she really loved as a kid and then was able to write a book about it when she was older. So I agree.
that's great. Well, speaking of buying books and reading books, we have an episode coming up in about a month. So on November 29th, our episode will be a book club episode where Emily and I will be discussing Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. So we're giving you all a PSA about that because if you'd like to read the book in preparation for the episode, and we're going to be totally giving spoilers and talking about the plot and the book and the ending and everything. So if you want to read it in advance and kind of tap into our conversation, give us feedback, let us know what you thought about it in the comments. That'll be in 2 episodes from now on November 29th.